Hi, Facebook and YouTube. Today we're going to talk about answering the question, should I hire a book editor? So, answer might surprise you. We're going to have some fun with this one today. But I'm going to get Instagram set up and then we will get started. Hi, Instagram. Today we're going to talk about answering the question, should I hire a book editor? So we are live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and we are just going to go through the questions you should ask yourself to determine if hiring a book editor is actually right for you. Now, the answer might surprise you because it might not be good for everybody. So I'll just go through the questions, and if you have any questions about the process or about hiring an editor or anything in the editing process, feel free to leave a question in the comments. I am monitoring those on all platforms. So so today we're just going to have some fun talking about hiring a book editor and if it's right for you. Because, okay, well, I'm just going to start so you guys can figure out kind of my thoughts on it. So I am a book editor myself, full disclosure. So I believe that every book can benefit from an editor, but I also acknowledge that it might not be realistic for everyone. So I wanted to put some questions together for you to ask yourself to determine if it's actually right for you to hire an editor. Now, we're just going to go through the questions. Okay, so first question is, if you're considering not having an editor, do you have the skills, the knowledge, the ability, or are you willing to learn the skills that you need, the technical skills that you need to edit your own book? Now, this can be developmental, this can be line edits, this can be proofreading. Like I said, I do believe every book can benefit from an editor, and hiring an editor will absolutely make your book better. But if you just do not have the space for that, and we'll talk about that in a minute, this might be something to consider. So the first question, if you make sure that you have the skills that you need or are willing to learn them before you say, well, I'm going to edit my own book. Because if you don't, your book will definitely suffer. Now, this is why I always suggest hiring an editor if at all possible, and why I say that all books can benefit from one. Because a lot of authors, your skill set is in writing the story. You don't necessarily have those editing skills. Now, it is possible to learn them. It requires patience. It requires some technical skill. And some people, for that, it's like pulling your hair out. So, So make sure that you have the skills or can learn them for editing before you commit to editing your own book and not hiring an editor. So before I move on, we did have a question. Okay, so what platform do I publish my books on? Me, primarily, I just use Amazon. I like Amazon's, on the author side, it's called KDP Select. And basically, on the reader side, that puts your books in Kindle Unlimited. So it allows readers to subscribe to Kindle Unlimited to read your books essentially for free after they pay the Kindle Unlimited price. And you get paid for page reads. So I like doing that. The offset in that on the author side is that my ebooks are exclusive to Amazon. There are other ways to publish your books. I have not found them to be beneficial or worth the extra trouble to publish my book on multiple platforms. So right now, I just use Amazon. I have used Ingram Spark in the past, and while they do have their benefits, for me, the benefits did not outweigh the additional. That was a new word, additional / extra work involved. So I ended up not using them for my current book that I just published last month. Yeah, it's been a little over a month. Wow, so fun. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm going to get a drink of water. I'm very thirsty today, apparently. And we're going to talk about the next question. One thing that would be beneficial if you are considering whether you should hire an editor or not is if you have author friends or other technically minded friends who are willing to go over your manuscript for you. Now, this will not, more than likely, highly unlikely that it will be at a level a professional editor would give you, But if you have an author friend, or like I said, someone technically that can, do this for you, and is willing to do it for you, you may not need an editor in that case. Or said another way, not that you may not need an editor, but you may be less inclined to, let me see how I want to say it. You won't need an editor necessarily, but an editor will still do a better job, more than likely, than someone who is just doing this for free. No, not always, but that's the hope, that you that you would pay for someone with a lot of skill. And basically, that just means that there are editors out there that are not as highly skilled as they should be to be charging for it. But again, that's why you do a sample edit. So I'll talk through that in a minute, just briefly. But basically, if you have a talented writing, author, technical friend that's willing to look over your books for us, you may be able to bypass using an editor. Now, that's not to say that you have to have that if you still do not hire an editor, but this is something that might be a good thing to consider and to think about. Okay, so another question. This is kind of a little bit on the side, but another question to ask yourself is, have you gotten feedback on your manuscript from other people? Now, this may be easier to find than someone who is willing to edit your book for you for free, like an author friend. But you can usually find a critique partner. Sometimes they're called alpha readers. They generally read your book in the earlier stages of your book. And then you have beta readers when your book is kind of, this is the way I use it, kind of almost done, but maybe you have something you're stuck on, you need some input on. Maybe something just doesn't quite feel right, and it's mostly good, but you know that there's just some gaps and you're just not seeing them yourself. That's the good thing to use for beta readers. But again, you can use this any point in the process and just be open and honest with the people that are reading for you so that they know what to look for. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining. Yay, this is so much fun today. Okay, so it's fun every week. Anyway, yeah, so make sure that you get quality feedback on your work from others. Now, any feedback can be helpful. I say quality. This might not be feasible for your first book, or if you do not have an author community yet or some author friends, and that's okay. You still want to get some feedback. See if a parent will read it, or a sibling, or just a friend, someone who normally reads books. Bonus points if they usually read in your genre, but just get some eyes on it. Even if they're not doing editing per se, but ideally they'd be giving you some feedback in this. This is also something that you can pay for as well. But a lot of times I know, and this is what we will talk actually in the next question, budgets are kind of tight for authors just starting out. So anyway, that's just a side note. So yes, that's the next question, leads into that. Is book editing in my budget? So book editing can be a very expensive expense. Can be a very pricey expense to take on. I realize this. This is especially authors who are starting out. You're trying to build your business, and it takes some time to get traction in the author business to actually start making a decent amount of money. So a lot of times this starts out as one of my friends call a very expensive hobby. And that's kind of what it starts out as. So it seems like it would be a lot to put money into a book that you aren't guaranteed you're going to get out. I understand that. I fully acknowledge that. And that's why I acknowledge that not every author can pay for a book editor. But do your research. So this is kind of where I'm going to do my little speech about book editing. There are lower cost book editors will still do a good job, but you have to find them, and it might be tricky. So if you're looking for a lower cost book editor but still will do a quality job, make sure, and this is for all editors, make sure you get a sample edit done. That way you can see their quality of work right there. You know what you're getting. You don't have to guess. You can make sure they do a sample that's large enough that you can get a kind of an idea. That's actually loud. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's so loud. Okay, so you want to make sure the sample is large enough. They do an edit for you on the sample. And just as a general guideline for me, if it's a novella, I'll do between 1,000 and 1,500 words. If it's a larger book, I'll do between 1,500 to 2,000. If it's like a general, like 70,000 words, something like that. And if it's really, really big, I might go up to 2,500. It really just depends on, the size of the book. Now, that is just my personal preference. That's I've determined this is enough for me to get an idea of what the book is, and it's enough for the author to see like my style of editing and how I will work with their story. And that's what the whole sample edit is for you guys to be able to tell, for the author and the editor, both, to know if the book is a good fit for that editor. Now, if you do not feel like the editor did your work the way you envisioned it, now granted, you have to take it with a grain of salt because the editor is a professional, hopefully, and is going to be cleaning up your work according to best practices, and also probably a little bit of their subjective things that they've learned and stuff in their writing. But if you don't feel good about it, if you don't feel good about the direction it's going, then you can just not hire the editor and keep looking. And that's a completely valid thing. And for me, like if someone told me that and like it's just not the vision I'm seeing, I'm like, cool, I'm not the right editor for you. I hope you find the right one, and they're out there. So I don't have a problem with that as an editor. And as an author, certainly, I'm not gonna want to hire an editor that's going to do something to my work that I don't want it to do. I want it to be a reflection of my writing. So anyway, yeah. But another consideration for budget is you want your story to be solid. Obviously, you want your book to be the best it can be because you don't want people to buy your book and then read it, give you 1-star reviews because the editing, the grammar, the punctuation, the phrasing, the pacing, all of that is off. And that's definitely the benefit, the strong benefit of hiring an editor. But there are other concerns for cost when you're publishing a book, as you know. Now, it is possible to really spend probably nothing except for your time in reading the book on publishing a book on Amazon. Self-publishing is what I'm talking about here. So you could technically write the book, do all the edits yourself, do all the proofreading yourself, format it yourself, do the cover design yourself, upload it to Amazon, all the marketing yourself, not spend a dime, and it is possible to do. However, we all have different skills, and that's the thing too. If you are considering, and I mentioned this earlier, but if you are considering doing your edits yourself, which, disclaimer, you should always do edits yourself, always. But you should probably also hire an editor to do additional edits because it's good to have those additional set of eyes on your work. But if you are, make sure that you have the skill set to do the edits that you are intending to do if you're taking those on yourself. Now, some people can do them for other people and not for themselves. It's can be a little bit of a different skill set. So just be honest with yourself here, be really honest, because you don't want to put a subpar book out into the world. If you're being really honest with yourself and you say there's just no way that I can do this book justice, that I can put my best work out into the world without hiring an editor, then maybe you need to hold off on publishing until you can save up the money for an editor, because it is worth it. Let me tell you, if your book needs a lot of work and you don't put that work into it, then you're going to get some reviews that just aren't favorable. Now, of course, it's not to say if you hire an editor, you'll never get a 1-star review. I'm not saying that. But it is a good way to guard against a lot of 1-star reviews commenting on grammar and punctuation, things like that. Okay. Another question to ask. Do I have the patience to edit my book into a quality product? This kind of goes along with if you have the skill set or not. Editing can be a very long process. It is also a very detailed process. If you do not find yourself a detailed person or do not enjoy doing detailed things, which I, by the way, love, which is why I like editing, because it can be very, very detailed and it's very fun. But a lot of people do not enjoy that. And so if you do not have the patience to give your book the time required after you've written it, you still have to put in the time to write it. But then if you do not have the patience or the inclination to take that time to edit it properly, then you might be a good idea to hire an editor. Last question, is my time more valuable spent somewhere else? Maybe you have a full-time job and you do not want to spend your nights and weekends editing your own book. Now, again, I do always recommend that you self-edit your book. It's like as close to a non-negotiable as you can get in this world. Always self-edit your book. And I actually have some resources coming up for this very soon. You'll be hearing about in the next week or so, and I'm super excited about that. But so stay tuned for that anyway on all my platforms. But if you have a full-time job and you want to use your time wisely, maybe it's better to do the self-edits yourself and get through what you can do, and then hire the editor to spend the time making it technically perfect, not perfect, beautiful, technically beautiful, or even developmentally sound, make the story flow, make it make sense, plug potholes, all of this stuff. Maybe it makes sense to you if you have the funds to spend your time with your family on the weekends, or however you want to spend your time, or writing your next book, instead of spending all the times on these intensive edits that you could hire out. Yeah, so it's just a matter of time. If you are if you work from home, if you're an entrepreneur, maybe it does make more sense to spend time on the business side of whatever it is that you do as an entrepreneur to make money and bring in income. If, like, say, I don't know, well, if you're a book editor yourself and you want to bring more clients, maybe it makes more sense to bring in more clients and then hire an editor yourself to do your edit so that you could be making, you see what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of like an exchange of time is money. So if you are better served spending your time bringing in more income, or spending time with your family when you have the income to cover it, maybe it's a good time to hire a book editor. So I hope those questions were helpful. Like I said, I've got a resource coming up all about editing. And it's going to be really fun. I'm super excited about it. I was able to chat with a few of my author friends over the weekend, and they said it was a pretty good idea. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be really fun. It's something I've had kind of in the back of my head for a while, and I really want to give it a try. So it's coming up in the next, I'll probably announce it in the next week or so. So yes, it'll be really fun. And I say fun because editing cannot always feel fun, but we're going to make it fun, because if we're not having fun, what is the point of anything, right? We write books because we enjoy it. We enjoy the process, and we enjoy others reading our work, largely, and finding that escape in our stories. That was, for me at least, is the reason I wrote the story in the first place. So, all right. Thank you all for coming, for your questions and comments. I am so glad to have you. I do these every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, so let me know too. I've been doing this like almost since the first of the year. I kind of took the summer off, but I've been doing this every Tuesday almost since the first of the year. And let me know if this is a good time for you. If you like this time, if there's a different day or different time that might work better for you. This just kind of is where I've settled, but I'm open to comments if it doesn't work for a lot of people. But anyway, okay. Thank you. It's been so helpful. Thanks for all the great info. Thank you guys so much. And a bunch of hearts. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we'll talk about something else next week. Keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, keep your eyes out for my upcoming resource. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it'll be really helpful for you when it comes to editing. That's all I'll say about it. All right. Well, bye, Facebook and YouTube. I'll talk to you soon.